Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to tonight's program, the public lecture hosted by NCAS, National Capital Area Skeptics. I'm Scott Snell, NCAS President. Tonight we have a special guest from a faraway land, that would be New Mexico. His name is Benjamin Radford. He's a writer, investigator, and managing editor of Skeptical Inquirer Magazine. Also author of 3 books and hundreds of articles on various topics, including critical thinking, urban legends, psychics. His columns appear in Skeptical Inquirer, the newspaper Weekly Alibi, that's a New Mexico, Albuquerque alternative newspaper, and on the web at www.livescience.com and www.csicop.org. Radford has appeared on the Discovery Channel, CNN, National Geographic Channel, the Learning Channel, and others. He's also a filmmaker and board game designer. His website is www.radfordbooks.com. His talk for tonight is The Truth About Psychic Detectives. Ladies and gentlemen, Benjamin Radford.
Thank you. For those of you, that was a fairly good introduction to what I do, but let me give a little more in-depth thing. Again, as Scott mentioned, I am the managing editor of Skeptical Inquirer Magazine. That part of my job is frankly kind of boring. That's like correcting grammar, fixing gerunds, you know, telling professors of English that they don't have a subject in their sentence, which I have done. I won't name names, but there are a couple rather snooty professors who insist that their work not be touched because it's golden, and then I point out that they don't have a subject in their sentence. So, but that's the boring part of what I do. The interesting part of what I do, at least I think, is the investigations, and that actually consumes a good chunk of my time, and it's the part that I find most interesting. I would say probably after Bigfoot and urban legends, really psychics is probably my third most favorite topic, just because it involves such a wide variety of phenomena, everything from psychic mediums to predictions, telekinesis, things like that. So, come on in, we just started. So, the truth about psychic detectives. Well, let's start out with what do we mean by psychic detectives, and what do they do? Well, the claim is that they provide information about where missing people are or help to solve crimes. Now, I need to clarify information, because that is the operative. That's the operative phrase, and by information I mean contradictory and usually vague feelings, generalizations about something having to do with where someone is. There's the number 5. Bodies near water, bodies not near water, bodies near something wood, etc., or trees. Or I mean, it's remarkable the breadth of material that's qualified as a success by psychics, and that's actually one of the interesting keys to understanding why it is that many people believe them to be successful. That's actually, to me, the most interesting part about it is it's not so much how do they do it, because the answer is they don't. That's not the question. The question is, why do people seem to think they do it? That really is the fascinating part, and a big part of the answer is that most people, everybody from Montel Williams and Larry King on down, have a very loose grasp or understanding of what constitutes good evidence and constitutes good scientific evidence. One of the interesting things about psychic detectives is that it's actually a combination of 2 different paranormal topics. One of them is psychic mediumship, because most psychic detectives claim to actually be talking to the dead. Not all of them, but many of them say, the reason I know what happened to this person is because I'm communicating with their spirit, which of course opens up lots of interesting questions along the way. And the other aspect is what's called psychometry, which is the claimed ability to get vibrations and read vibrations from objects, such as, for example, many psychic detectives will ask to get a hairbrush or a set of keys or some personal object that they say that they can then sense and get vibrations off of. I'm ignoring you. There you go. So actually, again, so psychic detectives typically are an interesting blend of more than one type of claimed power, and of course they appear on TV all the time. Larry King is famous for never finding a psychic detective he couldn't give lots of airtime to. Montel Williams, his favorite is of course Sylvia Brown. And I can, in the Q&A, I don't have time to go into all of her failings here. That would really take all night. But maybe I can touch on a couple in the Q&A. And of course, there's also TV shows. There's at least 3 or 4 that I can think of. There's a series called Psychic Detectives on Court TV, which I think is now True TV. It has different incarnations. There's of course the TV show Medium. It's a hit NBC show, which is based on Sylvia Brown, or not Sylvia Brown, excuse me, Alison Dubois. And she's an Arizona psychic detective who claims to have done all sorts of stuff. And interestingly enough, when the TV show Medium first came out, I guess it's been about 5 years now, I'd heard of Alison Dubois, and so when I saw the first couple of shows, it said, you know, the psychic detectives and that, and then at the tagline was, "There really is an Alison." Really? Thinking, really? Interesting. Okay. So I was reading more about her, and I went to the NBC website and looking up her bio because they're promoting the show. Their big new hit series did turn out to be a hit, starring Patricia Arquette. And for those of you who don't know, again, she claims to be a psychic medium. She works with police and solves crimes, and she gets visions and this and that and the other. And so I'm looking at Alison Dubois' bio that she provided to NBC. And in that bio, as in other places, she claims to have solved crimes, which to me wasn't, I've seen that before, there's nothing particularly interesting about that. But she claimed to have solved crimes for the Glendale Police Department, where she lives, and also the Texas Rangers. I'm thinking, well, that's interesting. So I called up the Texas Rangers. I said, this is Benjamin Radford. I'm an investigative writer at Skeptical Inquirer Magazine, blah, blah, blah. Have you worked with this person, Alison Dubois? And the answer was a rather cold no. No, we haven't, and we do not employ psychic detectives, and thank you for calling. Really? All right, let me just get this person's name address. No, thank you. So then I think, well, maybe they forgot. Maybe the Texas Rangers, maybe she solved a bunch of cases for Texas Rangers, and they're like, oh, no, we're going to claim that for our own. So let me call the Glendale Police Department. Called the Glendale Police Department. Well, in this case, they had, in fact, heard of her. They'd heard of her because people kept calling, asking if they'd heard of her. And the answer was no, the Glendale police do not use psychics, and they certainly didn't use psychics. They certainly didn't use Alison Dubois in that case or any other one. So, well, right. Well, let's see. Therein lies the rub, as they say. So I got all the information down. I actually wrote a piece in Skeptical Inquirer about it, and then I said, well, let me contact NBC. So I called up one of the media contacts for NBC, and I said, yeah, you might want to know that in your new show that you're promoting, the person that your series is supposedly built on apparently lied to you. Because she claimed NBC, not only is she saying this is information that's being put out on the NBC website about her. You should know that, apparently her claims don't check out, and I gave her the contact information for Texas Rangers, and the Glendale police said, call them up if you don't believe me. And she was very defensive, like, well, we have tens of thousands of employees, and we can't be expected to thoroughly research the biographies and the curriculum vitae for each one of them. I said, well, I'm sure that's true. The problem is that you're claiming to base this on your new series on this person. This isn't just anybody. This isn't the janitor. This is the premise of your new show. You might want to know that her claims can be debunked with a couple phone calls. At which point I got, I don't think I like your tone. Well, so I answered, I don't like your tone either. Fix the website. At that point, the conversation ended rather abruptly. And oddly enough, within a week, in fact, the section on the NBC website about Medium had been removed. NBC, the website for Medium no longer claims that those particular claims about her working for Glendale. So I was pleased I got something out of it. The one was a real bitch. Anyway, interestingly enough, there's about a half dozen or so sort of name brand psychic detectives. Most of them are probably familiar to some of you. There's Sylvia Brown, of course, Alison Dubois, Noreen Rainier. Carla Barron is another one. She had a show called Haunting Evidence. And actually, the Haunting Evidence case, virtually all psychic detectives, oddly enough, are women. I can think of one or two male psychic detectives. Interestingly enough, most of those are gay. It just happens to be, I don't know why, it happens to be the case. I made that comment at one conference, and people were like, I'm just not saying it's good or bad, nothing wrong with it, I'm just pointing it out. So maybe honestly, I think I have an answer for that, and it's because most of the psychic detectives believe they're helping people. They see themselves as nurturing. They believe they're helping families, and so it's a very nurturing profession in their minds. Now, whether they actually help or not is a very different issue. But I can tell you the psychic detectives, the ones who are sincere, and I think many of them are, they're trying to help out. They're sincerely, genuinely trying to help people. And when you point out to them that you're not helping people and your track record is not very good, they get cranky with you. At least with me. I don't know if they would with few people, but they certainly did with me. But in the case of Haunting Evidence, for example, there's another one where there was a TV show. It was on for, I think, 3 or 4 seasons. And it was a perfect example of how you can supposedly test psychic detectives. There was a cast of 3 people. There was Carla Barron, a guy named Oliver something. Anybody see the show? Good for you. I'm glad. Most people have. There were 3 people on there. There was and Patrick Burns. Anyway, there are 3 people, and the premise of the show was that these 3 psychics, led by Carla Barron, who's a LA area psychic, would go and solve cold cases. They would investigate cold cases, and they would, at the end of each show, they would try and say, okay, well, we think we've solved this. Well, after the show was announced, I wrote an article in Skeptical Inquirer Magazine saying, this is a new show that's coming out. It was for, I think, the History Channel, and we'll see. I mean, if these psychics can solve these cases, great. I mean, I'm all for that. I mean, let me just say that outright. If psychics truly can solve cases, that's wonderful. I'm not going to be in the way. Go out there, solve cases, help families out. Go ahead. If there's anybody who can really do it, go ahead. But if you can't do it, admit that and back off. And after 3 seasons of Haunting Evidence, I went back and reviewed all the seasons to see. I think they'd done, almost 25 or 30 cases over the course of the seasons. And I looked to see how many had they solved. I mean, this has been on for 3 seasons now. Presumably, they're doing well. Well, they had solved 0. That is, none of them. After 3 seasons. And it got renewed. This is the amazing part. I'm thinking, how much worse can you do? You haven't solved any cases, and the executive's like, yeah, we want you on for another season. Because you won't solve any more cases. It was baffling to me. And so I actually talked to Patrick Burns about it. There was the convention called Dragon Con in Atlanta, which is held every year, and I was a guest speaker there, and I actually ended up being on a panel with Patrick Burns, one of the psychics on the show. And Patrick and I had a couple exchanges, and I said, "By the way, Patrick, I happen to know that the show you're on, this and that, and do you have any explanation for how it is that your show and your team has solved exactly 0 cases?" And he tried to bring up a case of a woman named Katie Septage. There is one case that he claims he kind of claims to have solved it, kind of not. And as it turns out, the Katie Septage case, I actually know a fair amount about because it happened in Las Cruces, in New Mexico, where I live. And so I've read all about that. And so I looked into it, and in fact, that case was solved. It was a young college co-ed who'd been murdered, and her body was found in a dump outside of NMSU. And on the website, on his website, Patrick Burns says, you'll be amazed, when you see the information that John J. Oliver, the third psychic, had come up with regarding this person. So I started looking into it. Well, the DA says something very different. The DA says, and I have no reason to doubt her, she's the DA, says that, in fact, the case was solved when a person who is linked to the murder by DNA evidence confessed to it while he was in prison. Now, how you can transform that into saying that it was solved by a psychic is beyond me. And when I asked him about that, he sort of mumbled a sort of mild excuse and wandered on his way. So, this is the sort of thing that is unfortunately out there on TV. And the most fascinating thing about this, about the haunting evidence case, is I went to the website for the show, and there was a poll that said, are you impressed with the work being done by the team? And 70% of the people clicked yes. They're giving amazing information. Now again, they didn't solve a single case. This is verifiable. This is not open to debate. Either they have found the killer or they have not found the killer. In these cases, they have not found the killer, except when the killer confessed. There's no wiggle room here. Either the case is solved or it's not. And yet, over half the people are thinking, "Oh yeah, I'm impressed by this." Again, you have to sort of. Sometimes I'm just baffled by this. Like, okay, well, and again, part of the problem here is that what is the criterion for success? And the criterion for success among the people who voted yes, and many people who believe in the psychic detectives, is, did the psychic give information to police? That's the criterion. And by that criterion, yeah, psychics give a lot of information to police. That's not the issue. The issue is it correct? Is it accurate? Is it valid? Did it lead to the killer? In those cases, the answer is no. So it's a fair question to ask, what is the definition of success? And my definition for success for a psychic detective is providing psychic information that specifically leads police to a missing person or a suspect. Not just vague generalizations or this and that, information that leads to a specific person. Now that bar, and I've had long debates about that, and in the third part of my talk, I'll discuss the best case for psychic detectives, in which I had a long and rather animated and somewhat heated argument/discussion debate with someone about that criterion, because he felt that criterion is too high. He said that's ridiculous. You can't judge psychics on whether they catch people or find missing persons. I'm sorry, can you repeat that? Oh, okay, so what is your criterion? His criterion is again, did they provide information that was correct? I'm thinking, no, that's not a good criterion, because if a person goes missing, let's say that a young woman is abducted, and most likely, let's say, for example, it may be a serial killer or something. Well, most serial killers are male. Just a fact. So if you have reason to suspect a serial killer, if you suggest that the killer is male, that's not psychic. That's going by the numbers. That's actually quite likely. So what you find is that psychic detectives provide the illusion of success. They provide the appearance of success and validity mostly by giving sort of general information. And it's the same thing with Nostradamus' prophecies. Instead of being predictions, they're postdictions. That is, they come true after the fact. So, for example, a psychic will say, "Well, there's a missing person, and she'll be found near water, and there's something having to do with stone, and there's a 5 or a 3, and maybe it's near Highway 35 or 53, or 5 divided by 3, and they throw all this stuff out, and then when the body is found, it was near water. There's a creek a mile away, and it was near Stone Road, or it was next to some stones, or someone there was stoned. I don't know, but seriously, I mean, you laugh, but I'm telling you, I've heard people give me this, and I'm thinking, no, this is not working. And what's fascinating to me is that even if, let's just say that I'm wrong about this, and that the numbers and evidence is wrong about this, that psychic detectives do exist and they can do what they claim. The problem is that it's not useful. Even, let's just say that the next time a psychic comes up with information and says, the body will be found here and there, and the criterion that I gave you, using the information that we have now, that's not useful. It doesn't lead, even if you're right, the body will be found near, that's all well and good. If it doesn't lead police to the body, or if it doesn't lead police to the suspect, it's worthless. It does the family of the missing person no good whatsoever to say, your poor missing 14-year-old daughter, she's going to be found near some trees and rocks. That does you no good at all. It's worthless. If that information led someone right to it, then that's useful. But otherwise, what's the point? Why bother? And so I've gone to this sort of back and forth. But let me give you a quick example of one of my favorite psychic detective case studies. And I had actually written this up in Skeptical Inquirer a couple years back. It was a case of Wasson and Walters. And I'll just read this to you because it's faster than me summarizing. 2 elderly women, Ada Wasson and Mary Ellen Walters, left their Warren County, Ohio retirement home on April 19, 2007 for a day of shopping at a local mall. They never arrived. Days turned into weeks and months with no clue as to their fate. Their car was missing, their credit cards hadn't been used, and no one had reported seeing them at all. No families, no family members were called. The police were puzzled, and the families were desperate. The case was widely publicized. And again, this is in Warren County, Ohio, local, these 2 elderly women, what happened to them. And of course, it garnered the attention of the local media, and of course, where the media is, the psychics will follow. And the psychics immediately began, and again, this is very typical of what happens, is that there will be a missing persons case that's publicized in the media, and the psychics will come out of the woodwork, giving information to police, giving information to families, giving information to whoever they can find. And on rare occasions, the family members will seek out psychics. That happens on occasion. I don't know of any cases where the police have gone to a psychic specifically. There have been times when police know psychics and they sort of initiate it. But I don't know of any cases, and there may be some, but I don't know of any cases where the police are saying, we're baffled, let's go talk to a psychic. Far more often, the detectives are trying to figure out and sort through what's going on here, and they're fielding phone calls left and right from people who say, I have a vision about where this person is, I have an idea, I have ideas or numbers, whatever else. And I was interested in the case, and I first heard about it because I read this headline. I'll just read it backwards. Psychic aids in search for missing women. I'm thinking, interesting. Psychic aids in search for missing women. I hadn't heard that. Sort of like, with Alison Dubois. I hadn't heard that. Interesting. This is how these things come to me. So I'm thinking, well, apparently according to WYMT Kentucky, there's a psychic helping with investigation. I as someone who researches these things, I need to dig into this. And I quickly realized that, in fact, again, this is very typical of what happens, and it's exactly headlines like this that contribute to the public's belief that psychics help, because it says right there, psychic aids in search. I mean, this is the actual headline, psychic aids. I mean, that's psychic helps out here. What they mean is the psychic gave information to, and of course, until the person is found, there's no way to know whether it helped or not. Psychic says the missing person's on the moon. Well, I don't know. Is that helpful? We don't know. The person hasn't been found. There's no way to know if this headline is true. So I see that, and I started looking into it, and it turns out that psychics have been contacted, the police, in the Wadden and Walters case, the two elderly women, they've been contacted by 30 psychics over the course of 6 months. They sent maps, they sent audio tapes, they sent dream journals, they sent sketches, they sent numbers, they sent letters, emails, etc. One woman said that the numbers 42 and 27 would help out. If the police just do something with 22 and 47, that will lead them to them. One woman said that the missing women were 5 miles from where they were last seen. One woman said to search the Ohio River. There's a stretch there for you. Okay, all right. Good luck with that. Another person said that they were within 300 feet of a rural white church. All right, well, what's a rural white church? Is it a church that's white? Is it a place where white people go? 300 feet is just any white church? I mean, you know, where do you go with this? And there was one, I actually dug this up. This is actually my favorite. So I'll read the excerpt to you. Regarding Wasson and Walters, again, this is 6 months later. One woman wrote on a psychic prediction website. And it's fascinating, by the way. If you haven't been on the web, check out psychic prediction websites. There's a zillion of them. And they talk to each other, and they feed off each other, and they just go to town on these things. This is what the woman said. This is what I pick up. Difficulties with the car, possibly a ruse by the perpetrators to get them to stop. Then I feel strongly something akin to violence or a sudden act, a deliberate hijacking of their car, violence. Then I feel the women laying dumped face down on the unpaved road. It is not where people normally would go to picnic. I would assume not. Oh, look at the dead grandmas. Oh, come on, kids. Eat your hot dog. I sense 2 male individuals in their 20s were responsible. Stubble hair on the face. Darkened skin. I feel that they were suntan looking, but not black. Dark, full sort of eyebrows. Both have criminal records. One has a tattoo on an arm. A dark bluish looking small tattoo with different colors. Maybe an eagle or a dragon. Something with long claws. One has very dark black hair. The other has dark facial hair. Facial hair on one of them is a bit of hair around the chin near the bottom lip, perhaps, but not a huge amount, and longish shoulder-length hair. Wow, that's pretty amazing. Very specific. You know, we've got the tattoos, we've got the criminal record, blah, blah, blah. So, all this information and much more is pouring into the police department. And what are the police supposed to do with this? What the hell are they supposed to do with these numbers, these tattoos, these you know, search the Ohio River? Well, the women were actually found on October 14th. They disappeared on April 19th. They were found on October 14th. And actually, as is often the case, again, this is one reason I'm giving you this case is because it's very typical. It's a classic case down the line. As is often the case, if they don't find the body within the first couple months, the police aren't going to find the body, nor are the psychics. And that's exactly what happened here. The 2 women were actually discovered, as is often the case, by a passerby. It was a hunter and his son in a secluded field near Interstate 71 in Kentucky. One of the women was found in the car. Another woman was found about 20 feet from the car. And what police later reconstructed had happened was that they were on their way to the mall. They had missed the turnoff. They'd gone off and they'd gone around and they'd gotten lost on a side road. And they'd sort of come up along the interstate, but not quite. They were trying to get back to the interstate, but they couldn't get back to it. And again, the women were, I think, 80, 87, and I don't have the numbers here, but they were old. And so the women, they're trying to find their way around. They ended up getting, they actually went through a farmer's field trying to find their way back to the interstate. And they actually gone into a small dry creek bed where the car stopped. They didn't have cell phones. And they died there. One of them was still in the car. The one who was more mobile had tried to go get help, and she died of starvation or exposure. That's what happened to them. All the information that the psychics gave was wrong. Every little bit. The dreams, the numbers, the tattoo, the Ohio River, 300 feet from the church, every single piece, nothing, not an iota of any of that was correct. Not a smidgen of it was correct out of all those. And yet, the police had to follow up on some of this. Now, this actually gets to an interesting question that I sometimes get. Well, don't the police look into this? Of course they do. Of course they do. The police have to if there's a lead in a murder case, if someone comes up to you and says, I think I know what happened to this person, and the police don't follow up on that, you imagine, they don't know. It could be someone who is claiming to be psychic who's really confessing. It could be any number of things. But the police don't have the luxury of just sort of dismissing, oh, you're from a psychic, I'm not going to listen to you. No. The police do listen to psychics. They do. They have to. Because, I don't want to say, the police, if something is really outlandish, they're not going to send someone to the North Pole to see if the missing person is there. But within reason, the police do, and by protocol, have to follow up as best they can on all these leads. Because again, you don't know. A person could come to you with information. It's just like if there's a missing person, any of us come to them, they don't know who we are. We could be involved in it. We could be, who knows? The police can't just willy-nilly dismiss information that comes to them. That's not fair to the family. That's lawsuit territory right there. Well, so why didn't you listen to this person when they came up to you? Well, we thought maybe she was a psychic. And you were wrong. And that'll end your career right there. So the police spend, in this particular case, they'd spent over 40 work hours, police work hours, when they could have been looking for these women, tracking down bogus psychic leads. So the other problem here is that, again, that's what happened in the case of these two women. The flip side of this is that this is still the headline. If you look up the case, this is still the headline. The case has been solved. All the psychics were wrong. The headline is still Psychic Aids in Search for Missing Women. The headline is not, because journalists don't work that way, psychics were full of it in the case of missing women. Psychics were wrong in the case of missing women because, of course, the news, what makes the news is psychics are involved in the case. And very rarely, on occasion it happens, but very rarely do journalists bother to say, hold on here. By the way, in this high-profile case, it happens on occasion, for example, with Steve Fawcett, the missing adventurer who was gone for almost a year. Occasionally reporters, when they were rehashing the story, would say, by the way, various psychics gave information, none of which turned out to be true. But that's actually the exception rather than the rule. So again, you have these psychics that sort of come out of the woodwork with these things. And the biggest problem is, of course, that much of the information is contradictory. It would be one thing if there was a person who's missing, and the police get information from 5 different psychics. All of them are saying she's the missing woman is being held in the basement somewhere in southern Chicago by an Asian man. And if they're all saying this, interesting. That's something you can work with. Instead, you get wildly divergent. You get all over the map. I have for example, I have some of the different psychics that were involved in some of the high-profile cases. Elizabeth Smart, the young girl, was kidnapped in I think Utah. Over 1,000 psychics gave information about that. 1,000 different psychics gave wildly contradictory information as to where she was, what was going on with her. Do any of you remember how she was eventually found? 2 people recognized her on the street and they had cell phones, and they called the police. Elizabeth Smart was not caught by any information given by psychics. All that information, over 1,000 pieces of information, totally wrong. Brooke Wilberger, some of you may or may not remember that case. Over 500 psychics gave information on that. Local case, Chandra Levy. Anybody remember how she was found? A guy looking for turtles in Rock Creek Park. Now, Sylvia Brown, our lovely Sylvia Brown, actually gave information to Larry King about it. And she said that near water. She did the near water thing. Gotta love that. Way to go, Sylvia. Near water. Good job. And she said that. She also said that, that there were some trees nearby. Although actually it was interesting because in that particular case, Brown had actually said she was near standing water. Well, in fact, she was found on a hill. I don't know what planet Sylvia Brown lives on, but on a hill, water actually runs downstream. So so it's not technically true that she was found near water. It was sort of, again, what's near? 20 feet, 200 yards, a mile away. I mean, where do you come up with this? Lacey Peterson, another great case. Noreen Rainier contributed to that. In fact, Noreen Rainier claimed that she had solved the case. She said she gave all sorts of information to the Modesto Police Department. And Lacey Peterson was, of course, found by passerby walking a dog. People walking their dog find lots of dead people. So if y'all walking a dog, look for dead people. You might get your name in the paper. Lacey Peterson and her unborn son, I think his name was Connor, were found on the shore of San Francisco Bay. Again, over 1,000 psychics gave information about that, most prominently Noreen Rainier. She's like, I told the police, that this and that, and there was something about a rug and hit on the head. That's all well and good, Noreen. Didn't do any good, did it? Didn't find her. One of my favorites, and I don't mean this in a facetious way, Natalie Holloway. Great case. Tragedy, great case. Where's Natalie Holloway? Well, funny you should ask. I asked myself. Because Carla Barron, who I mentioned earlier on the haunting evidence case, she claims she solved the case. Carla Barron, the LA psychic, has stated on more than one occasion, including on her website, that she knows what happened to Natalie Holloway. Now, maybe you all missed the news, but apparently she's not found yet. But this is interesting, though, because if Carla Barron really does know what happened to Natalie Holloway, and she's not telling the police about that, then there's maybe some legal charges there. I mean, if she genuinely, if she's just bullshitting, that's fine. But if she really knows, if she has psychic information and she knows where Natalie Holloway is, then she needs to cough it up to the police so that they can go ahead and find her, because she's of course still missing. Over 1,000 psychics gave information in that case. In the case of Chandra Levy, who I mentioned earlier, it was fascinating. I did some research on all the different variety of psychic claims as to where Chandra Levy was. One of them was she'd been kidnapped by a boxer. I assume she meant a pugilist, not a dog. I don't know, but psychics. Well, no, it was a real dog. It was a giant boxer. She's kidnapped by a boxer, being held in a mansion somewhere. She was in the Potomac River. One person said that she'd been abducted by aliens. Hey, could be. I don't know. I wasn't there. I have an alibi. But of course, none of that was right. So, and again, this is part of the problem here. If the psychics can really do what they claim, why do we have 30 or 40 different psychics saying 30 or 40 different things? If the missing person is in one place, they're not in 34 different places. They're in one place. If the psychics have these powers, you would expect that more than one of them would say, this is where the person is, and not just sort of, again, near water, near something red. Well, okay, is the red a shirt? Is it blood? Is it nail polish? I mean, come on, this is not impressive. So you have a remarkable track record of failure, and yet many people continue to be amazed at the accuracy. It absolutely baffles me. Except when you look at it, from the point of view where the criterion is not did they solve the case? The criterion is not, did it help find the missing person? Because if you approach it from that point of view, then it's crystal clear. I mean, there's no, you can't argue with that. Natalie Holloway has not been found. Lacey Peterson, Chandra Levy, all these high-profile cases, they haven't been found. I mean, you can't argue with that. And yet, so what the psychics would try to say is, well, okay, maybe that's true, but still they give interesting information. So I have a little handout here, just because I have a little extra time, and my last piece isn't going to take too long. How to be a successful psychic detective. So, in case it can be pretty lucrative, by the way. Psychic detectives, many of them charge $200 an hour. I don't know what you guys are making, but I'm not making anywhere near that amount. Not tonight, anyway. No. I got a half a pizza and a beer, and I appreciate that, Scott. So the thing you should do. Oh, and let me throw out one other thing, just because this is another case that I enjoyed. Is there was a missing person by the name of Charles Capel. And Charles Capel was it's a tragic story, but again, it's very illustrative of these sorts of cases. He was a former professor. I've forgotten exactly where it was. I think it was Virginia or somewhere. And Mr. Capel had Alzheimer's, and he wandered away from his home, and he was gone, just disappeared. And he was well known as a retired professor. He taught at a local university for 50 years or something, and he'd sort of gone off to go. And no one knew where he was. And of course, eventually, missing persons case, high-profile case. Noreen Rainier gets on the phone. Hi, I'm Noreen Rainier. I've solved a bunch of cases. I've done. I got some police who will vouch for me, which is an interesting part I'll get to soon. And in this particular case, there was a Sergeant Squance, S-Q-U-A-N-C-E. Sergeant Squance vouched for Noreen Rainier's amazing psychic abilities. And I read it in the newspaper. I'm thinking, again, interesting. Let me look this up. So I called up Sergeant Squance and I said, I understand that you said, the quote was something like, I was very impressed with her abilities, or amazing. They like to use amazing. Amazing. So I said, well, what exactly, with all due respect, Sergeant Squance, what exactly did you find so amazing about the information that Noreen Rainier gave? And he said, well, it turned out to be accurate. I said, now, by which you mean the information led you to find Mr. Capel? No. Okay. Well, I already knew that because I knew what had happened, and Mr. Capel was found by? Thank you. A hunter. Yes, a hunter was out looking in some fields nearby, and basically what happened was that there was a blackboard here, but what happened was you go down. There was, and I took a close look at the terrain. You go down his road where he was, and towards the right was the city. Towards the left was a rural area, farmers' fields, woods, this and that, and he was of course found near the woods. Duh, right? I mean, well, think about this for a second. And again, this is what I'm trying. This is what I'm trying to tease out of the sergeant. He says, well, she knew that he'd gone into the woods. I said, well, from his house, there's two choices. He either goes into the city, where he's not going to be missing for 6 months. I mean, think about this. If you go, populated people, populated areas. You're not going to have a missing person wandering around a city for 6 months. I mean, he'll be found under under overpass. I mean, wherever he is, there's people there. So logic dictates that he went the other direction. I mean, I can figure that one out. I should charge $200 for that. I'm like, hey, I'm pretty good at this. So then they said, well, okay, yeah, but she said that he would be found near Stone, and in this case, there was a community called like Stone Creek. It wasn't even like he was found like underneath a boulder or something. He was found near a community called Stone Creek. I'm trying to be polite to this guy. I'm like, okay, if that's what impresses you, okay. And there are a couple other things, and then I'm thinking, well, hold on here. I mean, again, this is an Alzheimer's patient. He's not going to jump on a plane. Where's he going to be? Come on, folks, think about this for a second. And this is what the cop is amazed. I think, look, I can, let's go through the criterion. Elderly man, Alzheimer's patient. He didn't go to the right. He went to the left. He's not going to be 50 miles away. He's going to be somewhere relatively nearby. And in fact, the area where he was found was an area where the police had already searched. I don't know why they missed it, but they missed it. So again, but in this case, the take-home message here is that this is a police sergeant, Barney Fife. I don't know. I'm not saying it wasn't the nation's best, but all I know is that he was vouching for the efficacy of this psychic detective. And when I nailed him on exactly, I shouldn't phrase it that way. When I politely questioned him on exactly what he found so amazing, and I sort of deconstructed it for him, I think he sort of saw where I was going, and he didn't really want to go too far on that. So, the best way to do this, to be a successful psychic detective, is gather information about the missing person and the area. If you know the missing person is an Alzheimer's patient, he's probably not on plane to Vegas. He's probably somewhere nearby. Describe general features of the area. Safe bets include near water, a lake, stream, river, pond, empty Coke can, drainage ditch. Take your pick. Near stones, rock, sand, pebbles, something near rocks, a quarry, cement, concrete. Near wood, logs, branches, trees, fences, sticks, beaver dams, old doors, Numbers. Numbers are good. Always go for the numbers. Go for like a 5. Say it's an odd number. 50-50. And, if there's 2 people missing, you could say, well, I meant, like 3 of each. Throw that out there. Don't give any specific relevance. Just say there'll be a 5 in there somewhere. Mention colors. Colors are good. Blue jeans, green, grass, leaves, trees. Numbers are always good. And also, it's always good to include areas where the police are already searching, because the police probably know more than you do, so they probably already know where to go, and police aren't perfect. There was the case of another high-profile case was Kaylee Anthony, the young girl in Florida. Again, another perfect example. High-profile missing persons case, psychic detectives come out of the woodwork, give all sorts of information, didn't find it. Didn't find the missing person. In fact, anybody can do this. This is not rocket science, folks. The next time you see a high-profile missing persons case, just make a note, and when and if the person is found, just look at it. How were they found? See if it mentions, found by psychic detective, or found by hunter, or found by a person walking their dog or their turtle or whatever it is they walk. And of course, and sort of, one of the important things is to sort of give a whole bunch of predictions. That way, if a couple of them come true, then you can point to the ones that came true, and you can ignore the other ones. I'm going to wrap up with a very interesting case that I had that I encountered about 6 months ago. I was being interviewed for a podcast by something called Skeptico. Has anybody heard of this? Skeptiko. There we go. One in the back. And it's done by a guy named Alex Sarkis, some Greek, something or other. Seems like a nice guy. So I'm being interviewed on his show 6 months ago regarding psychic mediums. And his question was, he wanted my input in terms of how to test psychic mediums, and I gave him some ideas about how to test psychic mediums. And for example, you need to really test it scientifically, you need to make sure that the psychic medium is producing information that the sitter doesn't know. So, for example, if a person says, where is my grandmother's locket? And if the person doesn't know, then the information can't come. It can't be a cold reading or anything. It can't have come from the sitter. So I was just giving information like how to do that sort of thing. And Alex kept mentioning the amazing track record of psychic detectives. And I told him, as gently as I could, I said, well, Alex, with all due respect, I've actually spent many years investigating the claims of psychic detectives, and I don't know everything, but I've spent a fair amount time, and probably much more than you have, frankly, actually personally investigating these claims, and I don't know of any particular claims that hold up. Oh, of course they're out there. I know, I'm waiting. Oh, okay, right? And well, they're out there. And then later on, I just sort of let it drop, whatever. But then what got my goat, as they say, was he then accused skeptics, not mentioning me by name, but it was implied, skeptics of purposely choosing the weakest cases. He believed that part of the reason that skeptics are successful in often debunking these cases is because skeptics choose the weak cases, the ones that are flimsy, we know won't hold up. I said, no, actually, you've got that exactly backwards. I mean, I've been a skeptical investigator for over 10 years now, and I can tell you that I want cases that some meat to them. I want the best evidence. I'm not interested in wasting my time with cases that don't, someone said something. No, give me the best case. That's what I want. So thus was born the Great Skeptic Psychic Detective Challenge. I said, all right, Alex, you're so convinced that skeptics, choose the weak cases. Give me your best case. Give me your best case of psychic detectives, anytime, anywhere, any skeptic. Give me what you got. Give me your best, most airtight, rock-solid case that you say, this is it. This is hardcore evidence. The skeptics can't refute that. Well, he got back to me about 6 weeks later. I'd never heard of the case, but I did spend a good chunk of the last 6 months investigating it on and off. And in fact, I understand that, anyway, we had a couple different interviews. Some of them degenerated into heated discussions. And I think the latest installment, I think, is going to be up on his website, I think, this week or next week. So this is all actually very fresh, and we actually just had the recent installment about 2 weeks ago. So I'm going to play a clip for you of what he sent me as the best evidence. So again, this is presented to me as the best case. This is airtight. This is rock solid. And I can see on first glance why he was impressed by this. I mean, interesting case. You've got two police officers who are saying this psychic, Nancy Weber, gave them information just after Thanksgiving 1982 about the killer. Now, what we didn't get to was, of course, whether the information turned out to be correct. For this investigation, we specifically focused, again, there's a whole lot of elements to it, and we agreed to focus just specifically on the information that Nancy Weber gave about the killer. Because, again, there was also information she gave about Deidre O'Brien's case. There's also, for example, there's also the information, they actually made a lot of hay about the fact that Nancy Weber knew, and I use the word knew advisedly, that Amy Hoffman had been sexually assaulted and that she had been, in fact, mutilated. Whereas the quote she gave is "no wounds obvious." Now, I will explain that in exactly 60 seconds. Now, again, this is actually that part of the case was what convinced the two detectives that oh my God, there's something to it, because she knew that Hoffman had been sexually assaulted and had been stabbed, even though the police didn't know that. There's two claims here. The first one is that she'd been sexually assaulted, and it is true that the police withheld that information from the newspapers. So I actually went back and looked at the archives of the newspapers. It's true that up until December, the police are still saying she hadn't been sexually assaulted. That's what police often do in murder cases. They will withhold certain key parts of the story, because if you bring someone to interview them, and if what's in this paper is that she hasn't been assaulted and the person knows she has, that's something that they zero in on it. That being said, let's look at that for a second. Oh, I'm not going to make 60 seconds. Okay, we know 19-year-old woman kidnapped by a male from a parking lot. what do you guys think the chances are that she was sexually assaulted?
About 100%.
Well, it might not be, but further also by almost certainly, and they knew this within the first couple of days, a male stranger. This wasn't, so again, right. So was it absolutely certain she was sexually assaulted? No. But assault, kidnapped, not murdered. I mean, if someone's going to kill her, they could have just done it right there. So just common sense tells you that probably better than 50-50 she was sexually assaulted. So that part does not impress me. Call me a skeptic. I'm not impressed by that. The second half of this is more interesting because she says that she read in the part of what she said was she asked the police, why are the police lying? Because she's saying that the paper said there were no wounds obvious, so they couldn't determine cause of death. Well, that's interesting because the New York Times and the Daily Record, the Times and the Record from Morristown, New Jersey, I actually got tracked down the newspaper archives for that, and both of those say that she'd been, they quote the police saying that she'd been stabbed multiple times. In fact, in one case, 13 times. So she's presenting this as like, see, I knew that she'd been stabbed. The police, the reporters, the newspaper was saying that they couldn't determine cause of death. No, in fact, the newspaper accounts the day that she was found on the 25th are quoting police detectives saying she was stabbed multiple times. So I'm not impressed by that at all. All that means is you read the papers, which she admits in the narrative. So those two sort of pseudo mysteries are what helped convince the police to listen to her later on when she was giving information regarding who it was that had killed Amy Hoffman and later Deirdre O'Brien. There were actually 7. Well, depending on the source. Again, this is held up by a couple people, particularly Alex Sturkis, as being the best case. There are 7 different. Well, again, depending on which list you look at, the criterion. For example, Weber claims that she specified the Hoffman's killer had served time in Florida. Quote: he came up from Florida where he'd been in prison for murder. Weber claims that she specified that the killer's brother owned or worked at a gas station. Weber claims that she specified that the killer's last name begins with a K, and we saw that clip in the video. The killer's last name ends with an itch, or ish, or something like that, that he was of Polish descent, and his first name is James. As it turns out, all that's true. The killer's first name was James. He was Polish. His brother did work at a gas station. Last name did begin with K, did end in itch. He had done time in Florida for murder. Ends in itch. Yeah, it's pretty remarkable. Wow. I'm thinking, I got my work cut out for me. I got to figure this one out. And of course, we had the 2 police. So I'm being given this case, which again, at first glance is like, that's not bad, So I'm waiting for Alex to provide. And the agreement was that he would provide me the case and provide me some evidence for it, and I would investigate it. And over the course, anyway, again, so out of the blue, 5 months ago, he hands me this, says this is the case. I'm going to put my reputation on Nancy Weber, Amy Hoffman, James Kadadich. So meanwhile, I was waiting for more than this. I mean, this is what he sends me. There's another clip on there, but this is what he sends me as evidence. I'm like, hey Alex, what you got? Oh, the TV show. Yeah. Do you have? Is this what you got, Alex? Because really, this ain't working much. I kept waiting for. So fine. So apparently, but this is interesting because this gives insight into the mentality. To Alex, what we just saw is hard evidence. It's a TV show. There's 2 cops verifying it. She said these amazingly specific things. They turn out to be right. Case closed. What are the skeptics complaining about? Okay. Well, so I quickly realized that Alex wasn't going to be of much help on this other than sending me the DVD. Thanks, Alex. So I took it upon myself to look into it, and one of the first things I said is, by the way, this ain't evidence. I mean, this is a great story. It's interesting. This is a starting point. This is the first of many steps. So I said, well, I need transcripts. I mean, give me something other than the video. Well, he said, well, here's the telephone numbers for the cops. Call them up yourself. And he actually interviewed the police on, you can hear on the Skeptical website. So I had that. I had the interviews of him that he conducted with both Sergeant Hughes and Moore. And so I said, look, the burden of proof is on you. It's not my job to disprove this. It's your job to prove that she gave this information. I said, let's just be very clear about this. If this is what you're giving me, I said, I'm willing to look into this, but this is not my burden to take on. In the end, I actually did end up doing that. So I quickly found out. Actually, I didn't quickly find out. It took about a month to realize that all we have are the testimony. There's no written notes. That's all we got. We have the memory of 3 people that happened 27 years ago. A conversation that occurred 27 years ago. That's the best he's got. Now, of course, 2 of them are cops. One of them's still in the force. So I'm thinking, okay, well, I interviewed both police actually twice, and they both said, well, we did take notes at the time. I'm thinking, if you didn't take notes at the time about a serial killer case, then you ain't doing your job. I didn't phrase it quite that way. I was trying to be more diplomatic, but that was the thrust of it. They said, well, they had thrown them away, which, again, 27 years ago, they didn't necessarily know it was going to be profiled on as the best case, whatever else. So I interviewed them again, and again, Alex has already interviewed them. So he was going through it, and to him, it's like he says, here, quote from Alex: all 3 agreed that Weber provided information on the most important aspects of the incident. All 3 agreed that she provided the first name, the first name James, the last name begins with a hard K, Polish or Eastern European descent, ends with the itch, is from New Jersey, and he did time in Florida. So he says all 3 of them agree on that, and the rest is up to me. So I started out by working backwards. I said, well, hold on here. If the police had this information, by the way, I'm sorry, I forgot to tell you how I was eventually killed, or eventually captured, because of course that's important to know. James Kadadich, who had murdered 5 people, I think 4 or 5 people, including the first one was time in prison, second one was in prison, third one was Amy O'Brien, fourth one was Amy Hoffman, fourth one was Deirdre O'Brien. He was later captured on, again, this occurred just after Thanksgiving, '82. He was captured on January 16th, so it was 3 months later, give or take, 2.5 months later. And he was captured because there was an eyewitness, as Detective Moore alluded to, of somebody who'd taken the car. And a police officer who was paying attention knew there was an APB out for this particular car. And he happened to show up there was a domestic disturbance call, basically. He showed up one night, and he's like, that looks like the car we're looking for. Ran the plates. There's this guy acting weird. Put 2 and 2 together. They arrested him. Again, and this is actually one of the interesting parts about it, is that even Alex and Nancy Weber don't claim that she solved the case, which baffled me. I mean, this is your best rock solid airtight case, and even you admit she didn't solve the case. Okay, I'm thinking, but she didn't solve the case. She admits that, but she says still she gave, she's like, well, what about all this amazing information? So he was captured through good police work, an eyewitness, and tire tracks. So that's how he was eventually found. So then I started thinking, well, hold on here. If the police knew this information that she's claiming is amazingly specific and accurate at the time, why didn't they solve the case? Are they incompetent? They don't know what the hell they're doing? Or is it that she didn't actually give them that information as they're claiming? So I started my investigation by looking into that. So I actually got a copy of the Morris area phone book from 1982. And I started looking through there, looking for the criterion. I'm thinking, all right, they couldn't find the serial killer. Let's see if I can. So I used 3 criterion. First name starts with a J. Last name starts with a K and ends with the itch, and has 3 syllables, because that was actually, it wasn't mentioned there, but that was one of her claims. And I went through there. It took me about 20 minutes to go through all the names that started with the K. And there are a grand total of 4 names in the Morristown, New Jersey phone book, your Yellow Pages, July '82, that qualify that. There's two families. There's 4 names that fit the criterion, and there's 2 father and sons, and one of them is the serial killer's brother, the one who works at the gas station. So I'm thinking, well, I found more or less direct lead to the serial killer using the information that Nancy Weber gave, and it took me 20 minutes, and the cops apparently couldn't do this. Odd. And see, of course, when I put it that way, I sort of put Alex in the position of saying, all right, Alex, so what's your best guess here? That your best eyewitnesses are incompetent? Because, of course, he doesn't want to say that. Or do you think that maybe Nancy Weber didn't quite give as amazingly specific information? And, of course, neither one paints his case in a very good position. So he basically refused to answer that question. And if you listen to the podcast, there's me yelling at him, answer the question, Alex! Answer the question, Alex! Which is it? I'm going to go. So anyway, so that being a starting point, I think it's a fair question. Well, what is this? Why is it that in 20 minutes I can find the killer, but the cops can't? And again, remember here, this is someone who would kill someone several weeks later. So if the cops and Nancy Weber could catch this person, they could save a person's life. Deidre O'Brien would be alive if Nancy Weber and the cops, if this information is accurate, then they should have solved the case. So again, there's a whole lot of information here. I'm not going to go through all of it because I'm going to leave some time for Q&A. But interesting thing happened as I poured over the notes. I went through everything. I have a big old file folder full of stuff. Transcripts, this, that, and the other. I've spent hours and hours and hours looking through it. Alex, by the way, has spent about 15 minutes looking through it, as near as I can tell. Again, to him, this is the case. I mean, to him, it's like, well, duh, the cops say it. It's on TV. So I'm like, well, hold on here. Let's see what the cops actually say. So let's just take, for example, that he did time in Florida. In fact, if you actually interview Moore and Hughes, as I did, both of them dispute this. Which is weird, because like on TV it seems to sort of suggest they didn't. But Sergeant Hughes said that Weber stated only that he had, quote, had served prison time in the South. Well, remember, this is New Jersey. South of New Jersey is, what, like 48 states or something? Quote, I don't remember her specifically saying that he'd done time in Florida, just that he'd done time in the South. All right, we can interpret the South as several different ways. It might include the southern colonies, Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, Florida, Georgia, Tennessee, Texas, Arkansas, North Carolina, South Carolina, Virginia, Delaware, and Maryland. Or, of course, maybe she meant south of here, meaning, 48 states. So again, well, hold on. Again, remember what I said about how psychic detectives appear to be correct. They say things that appear to be specific, but are in fact general. Nancy Weber says he did time in the South, and sure enough, the serial killer did do time in the South. That's not what she said in '82. That's not what she said, and furthermore, that's not what the police said. If you nail them on it and say, what exactly did you say? I have all this on tape, so Alex is going to have a hard time with that. Weber claims that the killer's brother owned or worked at a gas station. He certainly did. The problem is that, again, both police say that's not true. Interesting. Hughes remembers Weber's information differently. He said that instead, she told him that the killer himself, not his brother, was associated with a mechanic. Either he was a mechanic himself, or was associated with a mechanic. Whoa, hold on. We've gone from the killer's brother works at a gas station to the killer or his brother knows a mechanic or went to a gas station at some point or bought gas or bought a Coke. I don't know. I don't know exactly what this is. And so, and in fact, interestingly enough, Hughes expressed frustration with the vagueness of her information. Now, again, this is being posited as like, oh my God, this is amazingly accurate. Hughes says, he says, a mechanic or related mechanic. Where do you go from there? Exactly. So again, when I interviewed the exact same witnesses that Alex was sure were going to bolster his story up and down, they're like, well, that's not quite what they said. Weber claims that she specified that the killer's name began with a K. We saw that in the clip. Well, once again, the cops say that's not true. Airtight case is starting to have some of the air leaking out of it. Unfortunately for Weber, both Moore and Hughes dispute this. Sergeant Hughes says, quote, I don't specifically recall her coming up with the K. His partner, Captain Moore, remembers Weber telling him the killer had a hard K in the name. All right, okay, hold on here. The claim is that the killer's last name began with a K. One cop says, I don't remember her saying that at all. The other one says, there was a K in the name, so it could have ended with a K. Or like it had a CK in it or somewhere. Again, you know, the big claim is it's specific, the truth behind the facts. And with all these cases, we have three different people who I believe all of them are telling me the truth. I don't, you know, I'm not about to call a police sergeant a liar. I assume he's telling me the truth. I assume that Nancy Weber's telling me the truth as she remembers it. I think Moore is as well. So it's not that any of these people are necessarily lying or trying to deceive me. And of course, Nancy Weber has a vested interest in, you know, her story is going to be, it was very specific. And after 27 years, you retell the same stories. And I have a background in psychology, and I can tell you that you know, numerous studies show that actually when you relate a story, you're not actually relating your memory, you're relating the last time you told the story. So the story sort of gets over and over, and it wouldn't surprise me that now they've told the story on TV in a couple of different times, that's what's going to happen to it. Oh, let's go on, shall we? It just gets better. Weber claims that the killer's last name ends with an itch, or an ish, or whatever else. No, the cops say that's not true either. According to Sergeant Hughes, quote, I don't specifically recall her coming up with the itch. Moore agrees. To be honest with you, I don't remember Weber saying the killer's last name ended with itch. All right. In this case, I'm going to believe the cops. I mean, given the choice between believing the psychic detective or the cops, I'm going for that. And all right, well, so just got two more here. Killer's last name is of Polish descent, or his last name was Polish. Both of them say, once again, that's not true. They said he was of Eastern European descent. Well, Polish certainly is of Eastern European descent, as is Czechoslovakia, Romania, Ukraine, Croatia, Serbia, Austria, Hungary, Belarus, Latvia, Lithuania, Moldova, and Bulgaria. In fact, the Morristown area, in fact, New Jersey has the third highest percentage of foreign-born immigrants. I mean, there's like, you can't throw a rock without hitting someone whose last name ends with itch around there. Again, you see the exact same pattern. Her claim is, I said Polish. They're like, well, she said Eastern European. Well, you know, the wiggle room just goes the farther you go. And then, of course, there are also claims that Weber says that the man who did this, his first name is James. Now, in this case, Sergeant Moore agrees with Weber. He says, I do remember her saying that she said his last name, her first name was James, whereas Sergeant Hughes said, quote, she didn't have complete names for us. Now, in all these cases, who do you believe? We've got three different stories here. The psychic says, I gave this information. One cop says, I don't remember that. All I got to say is, if this is your best case, I'm not impressed. All right, let me go into open up some questions. So, since you, all right, go ahead.
Just a couple of comments.
Yeah.
Had they been armed with the specific information that she claimed to have given them, not only could they look it up in the telephone book, 20 minutes after that, they could have found out whether any of those people registered cars that fit the description.
Right.
That where they just walk out to their house and look at the car, look at the license plate, look at the tires.
Well, I asked them about that, and I again, I had to be polite. You know, I have to emphasize, you know, these are police officers. I respect police officers. I'm not going to say anybody's stupid or liar. I mean, I was trying to sort of say, look, you know, with all due respect, sir, not to impugn your 35 years on the force. Why do you think it is that you didn't solve the case? why didn't you follow up? I mean, if you knew all this information, you knew he'd done time in Florida, can you not check with the BOP, the Bureau of Prisons? Do they not have records? And it's like, well, we maybe could have done that. And, well, you could have saved someone's life if you had. Yeah.
One thing that I found interesting was her relationship with the police. That is to say, even if there was a case where they held back that the woman was stabbed, and she said, well, why were you lying? She could have heard it from one cop and related it to another cop.
Right.
Do you find, first of all, what was her nature with her social arrangements with dealing with police? And do you find that that's common among psychic detectives, that they're sort of police buffs?
Yeah, that's actually an interesting question. I couldn't get too far into it. I actually only interviewed Nancy Weber at the very end, like right before. In fact, it'll be interesting to see how they edit it, because I interviewed her. The very last thing I did 2 weeks ago when I wrapped up this case is I asked her about it. I didn't really get into. I only had limited time because she had a $200 phone call coming in, and so it's actually interesting because as I'm pointing out these inconsistencies, well, because the police say something different. After a while, she's like, "I really got to go. I'm terribly busy with time."
Do you find that skepticism makes people very busy too?
Yes, it's really odd.
People argue with me forever, and then when they start getting back to the corner, suddenly they have better things.
Right, it's something like, yeah. Well, but to answer your question, what you find is that in this particular case, and again, that's an interesting angle to go at. Obviously, Weber knew Moore, not Hughes, before, so they were friends. Now, what the nature of that friendship was, he had said that he had, well, he didn't say, initially, neither one of the police had used her in subsequent investigations. Now, they both said they would have, it just didn't come up. They just didn't happen to have something they needed a psychic detective on. But, right, that'd be easier. But,
She's their ace in the hole.
yeah, but it's certainly a valid question. I mean, if both police really do believe she gave amazing information, I'd use her all the time. I mean, shit, save me some time. Bring the psychic in here. Let's can these cases.
Have to necessarily be murder. It could be counted.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh yeah, I mean, that's always one of the problems with psychic detectives is, where's Osama bin Laden? I mean, if you can do what you claim, then there's all sorts of people we're missing.
We know in the past that the CIA has done experiments with psychics to try to locate Soviet submarines and so on during the Cold War, and that didn't work. I suspect that they may have tried again.
Did they answer with E6?
You sunk my battleship.
I'm curious about this case. So this TV show knew about this case to produce this show about it.
Yeah.
Did it have some notoriety? Like, could I have picked up a book in 1990 and read about it? How did they even know this case existed?
That's a good question. I think what had happened was that because it was a fairly celebrated case at the time with serial killer, young missing woman, Amy Hoffman. What was interesting was that as I did archival research into the newspaper, this was actually only one of a handful of missing persons cases that were still unsolved. So part of my question is, well, hey Nancy, I know you didn't really solve this one, but how did you try your hand at the other 10 missing persons cases? Because there's in one of the cases, like from I think it was from December '82, there's a map of like a half dozen missing persons cases in addition to the Hoffman case. And I'm thinking, well, hey, if you can just bang these out, then why aren't you doing the rest of them?
You've met a variety of people who have a need to believe in psychic detectives, and you've experienced that when you tell them the facts and disprove it, that doesn't change their beliefs, and you haven't met their needs.
Right.
Do you ever have any ideas about what is that need?
Well, there's a couple needs. Again, you have to understand the goal on. You have to understand the mentality of the psychic. And Nancy Weber believes she's helping people. I'm sure she does. Most of them sincerely believe that they're helping. and they see themselves as nurturers. I mean, they may charge $200 for it, but they believe they have a gift, and they're trying to help in their weird, non-helpful way. So you have to understand that when I or someone else challenges the efficacy of their abilities, they see that as challenging them. That's their identity, and they don't like that. And it's not so much. I mean, if someone is a poor lawyer and they lose all their cases, you can point to and say, "Well, you're not doing your job here." If someone's screwing things up, but if they're a psychic detective, or any psychic, in fact, I mean, I've dealt with other psychics as well, which Scott and I talked a little bit before. But that's part of who they are, and that's part of why it's so ingrained in them, is that they don't. And when you point out, say, look, it's not working. You're not solving the cases. Just step outside your little bubble here and look at the facts. Look at your track record. And they're like, but I got this right. The serial killer, his last name did start with a K. He was from Florida. And I'm like, you're right. That's not what you said. But I'm sure she believes that she said that. And to her, it's like, well, I don't care whether the police remember that or not. That's what I said. And there's no tapes, there's no records, there's nothing written. And so there's this need to believe, and there's also, of course, for the family of the missing persons, they don't care where the information comes from. If a psychic, I mean, if I have a 14-year-old daughter and she's missing, I'll listen to a psychic. What the hell? I'm desperate. I mean, if the police aren't doing anything, I'm putting up missing persons flyers all over the neighborhood, and some psychic says, I think your daughter may be in the next town over. Why wouldn't you listen to it? You got nothing to lose. Yeah.
In relation to that, why people want it, there's a great quote on Futurama where he's seen a psychic and he calls her out on being a fraud, and she says, well, do you want false hope or not? And he says, well, only if there's no real hope available. And people are like, well, I don't really have any real hope, so right. This is something.
It's better than nothing, and that's hard to argue. I mean, if you're talking to somebody who, and actually, let me just tell you a quick story. There was in the case of I'd mentioned the Haunting Evidence series of Carla Barron, and there was a case of a woman in Atlanta. I've forgotten the name of it. Tara Walker, I think. And I had written a piece about it in SI, and Tara Walker's brother emailed me, and he said, I thank you for writing that piece about Carla Barron and the psychic. He said, frankly, it's bullshit. He said, look, he says, the woman didn't help solve the case. The TV crew burst into our house and was doing this all sort of thing, getting us on camera and this and that. And he said, people come up to me and say, oh, isn't it great that Carla Barron was doing the psychic stuff? And he said, my mom dealt with her. She said, she's a Fruit Loop. That's a quote, Fruit Loop. She's a woman's a Fruit Loop. And you don't see that end of things. When you see these TV shows, you don't see the families who have endured having some damn production company in their house for a week, asking them questions, asking them to relive their daughter's disappearance. And it's not because they want to, it's because they're hoping that somehow the publicity will bring somebody to say, oh my God, I know something about that. So it's not that they necessarily believe the psychics are going to help. It's that they're desperate and they're like, so that was an interesting insight into, the TV show doesn't interview the family who says, this is a crock of shit, get your cameras out of my face. They interview the people who are saying, oh yeah, this is wonderful.
Now that we know from what you said about the police officers, they don't back up this case very strongly. Mm-hmm. But when I was watching it, I got the impression they did. Is there anything contradictory?
That's the way they edited it. Yeah.
Well, no. No, it's a very good question, and that's and again, this is why this case is so fascinating to me. Is that in general the police back her story? They do. Both Moore and Hughes believe that she gave them amazing information.
But then you went point by point, and they backed off on each.
Well, Right. But you make a very good point, and there's a couple of answers. One answer is that some of the claims are only on TV. It's a narrator. You don't hear Bill Hughes saying she came up with a K. That's the TV show. That's the narrator. Now, where the producers and the writers got that, I don't know. But if you ask them, but again, it's to everybody. What's that?
Michael Moore's School of Film Editing.
But the issue here is that what's fascinating is that to everybody involved, whether it's the police, whether it's Nancy Webb, or whether it's Alex, they're missing the forest from the trees. They're saying, well, okay, maybe there's little holes here, and over here, but altogether, isn't it amazing? No, there's holes here, here. But again, they don't. If you nail down the details, they will honestly, and I much appreciate, they will admit, it's like I don't remember her saying that. She's not, and then notice they're not saying she didn't say that. This is 27 years ago. I don't remember what I did last week, much less 10 years ago, 27 years ago. So this is interesting in that these are sort of hostile witnesses to me. I mean, they're being honest with me. I'm sure they are, but everybody. It's like, again, big claim supports her, little details does not support her, and if you ask them about that, then they'll just say, well, I don't. Just because I don't remember her saying that doesn't mean that the other parts of it weren't true. Because again, they're impressed by the fact that she knew that Hoffman had been sexually assaulted. She knew that that she'd been stabbed, even though it said it in the papers. Yeah.
Is there any way to mitigate this on television? Or, I mean, obviously we don't watch it, but we do.
Right. No, there's not. No, because especially in series like this, they just want the ratings. They're not. There's not a hint of skepticism here. If they were trying to be responsible about it, they would have a skeptic on staff and, hey, I'll show up. I'll work for pizza and beer, maybe. Depends on how much pizza, how much beer. But again, that's not the point. Is not to provide. This is entertainment. This is and it amazes me that in this day and age, people would watch a TV show and think that they're getting they're getting a documentary. It's like, guys, no, this has been edited all to hell, and that's why it'll be interesting to see what Alex does with the audio tape. Because again, with the last time, Alex and I both on the line interviewed both Moore, Hughes, and Weber. So, and I have a copy of that. So if he edits it weird, I got a copy and I'll put that out. And it's not going to make him look good if he gets too creative with the editing. But yes.
Well, also with the police commentary and that, a lot of it seems to be more about her character as a human being. Mm-hmm. And it's like, I could interview people about their mechanic, but all they're saying is, well, he seems like a really genuine guy. He's very nice, and it's like, that doesn't prove he can fix my car.
Right, and in fact, when I was interviewing both of them, they went out of their way to begin with that. She's a sweet woman. She's trying to help out, and she's very genuine. She doesn't seem like the person who would make things up. Okay, now that we've got that out of the way, let's get to the facts. And so there's somebody over there. Yes.
This brings up sort of a general counter argument I get from people when I express a skeptical viewpoint, which is, what's the harm of someone going to an astrologer or psychic? So it seemed at a minimum here with this case, the police were wasting their time. And you mentioned another case where they spent 40 hours chasing down psychic leads. In your research, have you run into anything that goes beyond just a time suck and waste of taxpayer money for the police force? There's a case that I'm thinking off the top of my head. There was a case about 4 or 5 years ago where there was a case in New Jersey, I believe it was. There were 2 children who were last seen playing near the Hudson River. They were playing ball or something, I think it was. They were 5 and 7 or something along those lines. And they disappeared. Gone. Cops are looking for them. Psychics are calling in with their tips.
Some people said they were in the river. The police showed up at the address. Cops are going crazy everywhere, putting up, they're searching Megan's Law for suspected sexual predators. The children were found 2.5 days later in the parking lot in the trunk of the car, 2 feet from where they disappeared. Nobody bothered to look in the trunk. The kids had climbed into the trunk, hide and seek or something, and they died. And if the cops hadn't been chasing down all these leads, these stories about, oh, go dredge the lake, go call that. Now, hindsight's 20/20, but while these cops were running around, I mean, literally, the kids were within 10 feet of where the police were. I mean, they were in the trunk of the car right next to them, and no one searched there. And it's like, if you're psychic, then save the damn kids' lives. If you're psychic, you have these powers. Tell the cops, look in the damn trunk. Don't give us these wild stories about this and that to save someone's lives here. And so, there's cases like that where, I mean, I'm not going to say that, that the psychics caused the kids to die or anything, but they were clearly misdirecting.
Where the distraction counted.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, but you have to remember that the police don't have the luxury of just ignoring anything that comes in from someone who claims to be psychic. So, the biggest drain is time and resources on police, and a lot of people don't think about that when they read psychic helps the missing persons case. Nobody thinks about what's behind this headline. And there's also the false hope given to families. Psychic comes in here, oh yeah, we're going to find your daughter, this and that. And they're like, oh my God, maybe this is, and then nothing comes of it. Yeah, you had a question, or if you don't, then make one up now. Come on, Bernie.
Well, I guess when people always ask, like, is there any use for psychics, and I always say yes, it is to make meteorologists feel good.
There you go.
Yeah.
I'm just curious, have you ever talked to private eyes, professional ones, and what they think of psychic detectives? And
I actually haven't talked to many PIs. On occasion, PIs will bring in psychics, either because they don't know anybody. Yeah. So it's, I mean, it's, I think, most of the time when I get involved in the cases, I mean, if a PI wants to hire a psychic on behalf of a family, knock yourself out. The family wants to pay for this, whatever else. If it's police doing it, that's another problem. And in fact, there have been cases where, like for example, the case of Charles Capel, the Alzheimer's patient. Noreen Rainier was paid, I think, $300 for her information in that case. That's taxpayer money that you and I pay, going to pay Noreen Rainier. So, and let me just, one other quick thing. I went to yesterday I went to the Museum of Crime and Punishment, I think it is, over. And it was interesting. I was reading all about Bonnie and Clyde and Jesse James and this and that, and FBI and forensics. And the weirdest thing was, I didn't see a section on all the crimes that were solved by psychics. I'm like, what's up with this? So I went and asked the lady, I'm like, there's all these cases and how they solve crimes. Where's the psychics? And she's like, I don't know. They're in there somewhere. Anyway, yes.
I was going to give you one example of what can happen with a psychic in a case. This is actually a local case from 1960. Peter Herkus, who some of you may know about. He came to town to help solve a family of what's called the Jackson family murders. He got the wife of one of the suspects to involuntarily commit him to a hospital for the criminally insane. Wow. And he was there for about 2 weeks until the FBI solved the case. And if they hadn't solved the case, he might still be there. And
yeah, you got she's left, but when you've got two things going on here with Weber and Hughes and the psychic. You've got three people confabulating about something that happened 27 years ago. But she asked about you know, the shows that are produced. And it reminded me of a story I heard that some History Channel was doing a program on Amazons. Apparently the Amazon, they wanted to make the theory of the Amazons were an actual tribe in Europe. So they contacted an expert, and this was on the internet, he was telling his side of it. And they said, well, they contacted him, and the first thing that he said to the History Channel producer was, realize this story is a myth. And there was a dead silence, and they said, we're not going to be needing you.
Yeah.
There's no way that they're well-meaning when they do stuff like that.
Right. Yeah, I had a similar experience where about a year and a half ago I got called for the Today Show regarding a Bigfoot hair. It wasn't the most recent Bigfoot hoax. It was a Bigfoot hair and body that was found a year and a half ago. And so I'm talking to the producers, and I've never been on the Today Show. I don't really watch it. I don't really care, but it might look kind of cool, the Today Show. Whatever. So I'm talking to the producer, and she's asking me about the history of Bigfoot and this and that. And one of the things I said was, well, you realize that this is not the first time that someone's come up with Bigfoot hair. I mean, because her was like, they finally found the Bigfoot hair. Like, yeah, I've seen this. I got a shelf full of them. What do you want, right? And she's like, so this isn't the first time? I'm like, well, no. And there's a silence, and I could almost like see my chances of being on TV just like, it's like, yeah. So yeah, there's really not much of a mystery here. Okay, thanks. And there it is. So.
But they still had the person with the Bigfoot hair.
They still had the dude with the Bigfoot hair, the proponent on there. Yeah.
All right. Well, thanks
Well.
very much.